Today, we are going to discuss about one of the most important things in computer science, that is loops. Loops are basically of two types, for loops and while loops. Look around for any computer language and you may find that there is loops like for loop and while loop. No matter it's like a low level programming language or a high level programming language, it may contain loops. Suppose you are making any kind of application, no matter that's an application or you are doing any kind of competitive programming or you are doing any kind of competitive task, then you may need loops for the project to be completed. So today we are going to discuss about for loop and while loop in JavaScript. So without wasting any time, let's dive into the video. Now suppose you are having one basket and that basket is containing like 10 apples. Let's take 10 apples only. And suppose you are given a task that you need to check that which if there is any kind of if there any apple rotten, you need to just remove that apple from the basket. Okay, so what you will do, you will just check for each and every of them. So you'll say like first one, yeah, that's okay. Let's say let's take the second one, that's okay. Third one, let's take the third one, and yeah, that's all okay. Now the fourth one was not okay, so you are just going to just remove that. Okay, so then you are just going to remove the apple from the basket. Okay, now you are just checking for each and every of them. Okay, now suppose you check for fifth one. Okay, and after that you just check for each of them, and then you checked for the last one, for 10th one, and suppose that's okay. So you just say like, yeah, the task is completed. So yeah, you can say like task completed. Now you just remove some of the apples, now on the fourth one as well, and as well as the apples which may be rotten in between the fifth and the 10th one. Okay, so what we are doing, in fact, we are just checking it for each and the value, and from the basket we are just checking it for each apple, that is it rotten or is it fresh. So similar task is there in programming as well. Suppose you are giving a collection of data and you are just given a task to check for each and every data condition, then in that case that seems to be very difficult when you are doing it manually. Instead we can do it using loops like for loops and while loops. So here in the index.js, let's go here and take a look at that how we can do that. First of all, as you know that we can assign values to variables. So let's say collection, let's make a variable of collection and let's give it an array, and the array is like a collection of data. So we are going to just give some data here. Let's say okay, so what data should we give? Let's give numbers only. Let's 1 2 3 4 5. So let's take these numbers like 1 2 3 4 5. This is like a basic collection of data containing a lot of like not lot of numbers but 5 numbers only, and this is like a collection of data. And now what we need to check for each of the values at this point, that is let's check, is each number is even or not. So we are going to take a look that how we are going to run a loop in which we are going to check is the number even or not. If not, we are going to just remove that, and if yes, we are going to just put that. Okay, so okay, let's make one array here. Let's say shuffle array is equal to a null. Okay, you can say an empty array as well. So let's run a loop. Now how we are going to run a loop? For that we are having a keyword, or you can say a for loop function for, and at this point we are having like let I. We are going to run three condition at this point. First condition is let I to be equal to 0. We are just initializing a number I to be equal to 0. In the second condition we are just separating it by using a semicolon, and then we are saying like I is smaller than the collection dot length. And now what we mean by that, yeah, that's correct. If I is equal to 0, the collection dot length means what's the length of this collection? It's almost 5, right? And we are taking I to be equal to 0. We are checking if I is smaller than the length. Yeah, it's smaller than length because 0 is smaller than 5. And after that, we are just separating one semicolon and we are saying I plus plus. Now, what do I mean by plus plus? Plus plus simply means like you are just adding 1 to the value of I every time it's smaller than the length of the collection. Let's run this loop, and now here comes the basic thing, like here comes the heading of the loop. This is known as the heading of the loop. We are just initializing one variable I true with 0. We are checking if it's smaller than the length of the collection, and then we are adding 1 to it if it's smaller. And now what will happen is you will see like in the first one it's going to be 0. It will check for the first time like it's 0. So it's going to say like yeah it's 0. So we are going to add 1 to the value of I, and then we are going to run the function which is inside this loop. Okay, so then when 1 is added to the value of I, we are going to get 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. And the moment we get 5, it's not smaller than the collection dot length, it's even equal to. So the condition become false and the function as well as the increment stops occurring. Okay, so that's a basic idea of how a loops work. Let's go ahead and see what we can just do inside the function. Let's say we can do anything. Like for that number of times when I is being repeated, I is being repeated like a 5 number of times, then we can perform a specific task as well. Let's say console.log I. Now we are going to check that what are the occurrences of I at all costs. Let's see like nodemon index.js, and let's go ahead and see. So we are getting like 0, right? So at the starting only it's like 0, right? So we are getting 0, 1 when it's like one increment is there, then 2, 3, 4, but there is no 5. Why is there no 5? Because when it becomes 5, the condition become false and the loops stops working. Okay, so this is like how a for loop. Now suppose you just forget about how this heading looks like. Okay, so you can just do here, you can in VS Code you can just like a for, and you can see that we are having like this for loop. There may be written like for loop on the right hand side. You just click here and you get something like this. Okay, let me just do it once again to show you. For, and that's it. So we are having like multiple cursors, and we can just write here anything. So for let I to be equal to 0, I smaller than array dot length, I plus plus element is equal to array I. For let index, and like it's one loop inside the another loop. So yeah, that's the same thing. Now suppose if you forget that heading, that's a very different thing. So you can just use this thing, this you can say VS Code snippet. Now, in the same thing, we are having the converse of for loop as well. Like, suppose if you want to do the inverse here, you can do that. Suppose you say like I to be equal to like collection dot length. It's like in starting only, it's not 0. It's like collection dot length is the highest value. Now you are just doing the converse. Like you are just doing the opposite of the thing. In the previous case, we are checking for 0. Now at this point, we are taking the highest possible value for this condition. In the previous case we were checking if it is smaller than, now we are going to check if it is greater than, and it's not greater than the common collection at length. We are going to check is it greater than 0, and I not plus plus minus minus, that's going to like decrease it by 1 or a decrement of 1. Let's say console.log I. Let's save this, and you will see like we are getting 5 4 3 2 1, but not 0, because 0 is equal to 0 and the code stops working. So 5 4 3 2 1. So you see 0 1 2 3 4 and 5 4 3 2 1. That's the same thing. Now one more thing that may be very beneficial to you all. Suppose at this point we were like getting one problem. Let's say for let I to be equal to 0 and I smaller than collection dot length. We are just doing the same thing that we did like 2 minutes ago, and now we're going to select console.log I, right? Now let's save this. So we were like getting, we are getting like 0 1 2 3 4. Now suppose if you don't want to get the value from 0, you want it to be from 1, then what you can do inside this loop, before logging out the I in the console, before that you can say like I plus plus one more time, I plus plus, like double 2 times, like I plus plus I plus plus. You save it. Now what will happen is when you do like this, you will just get like from 0. If you are at 0, you're going to get like 0 plus plus, so you're gonna 1, and then one more time plus plus, you're gonna get 2. So for okay, so we're gonna 1, then 1 plus 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 is 3, and plus plus is 5. So this is not the way. Let's say plus equal to 1. Let's save this. No, so we are having the plus plus at this point. Let's say this to be not equal to plus plus. Okay, let's say we want it from the this position. Let's say plus plus, and we are getting 0 1 2 3 4. We are getting this value, right? So let's say 0 plus I plus 1. Okay, so we do not need to like implement the value at this point. We just log it by just doing the its operations signed by right? So we are just adding 1 to it, like 0 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the way you can do that. Now here comes the next loop, that's like 5. Okay, one more thing is left. And suppose if you say like let's say you want to access each and every element, not the index of the element, but you want to access each and every element, then you can use for loop only, but at this time the heading is going to be something much different. Let's say for let element in is the keyword that's used for loops, like in collection, like an element in the collection. We are going to just run the loop for that, and we are going to say console log element, and we are going to run that. So we are going to get the, like you can say 0 1 2 3 4, that's like the elements at this point. So we're getting the elements. Now suppose if you want the exact element at this point, so you can just say like collection, and you can just run it for the index. Okay, can say like collection and the index you want of the element. Okay, so you will get the exactly the same value that's there in the array. 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5, that's exactly the same. Let's console it out, like comment it out. Then we are having while loop. While loop is something much you can say an infinite loop, and while loop needs one condition as well, because we at this point we were having like this condition, right? Now suppose you are making any kind of game, then at that point the while loop may be very useful, because at game we need fps, and fps is like frame per second, or you can say continuous update of the frame per second. So you can say the screen update, like means per second you need to make any kind of screen update. So you can use while loop at that point, and the while loop just needs one condition, and the most basic I'm going to tell you, like suppose if you don't want to give any kind of complex, you just want to run your while loop again and again, again and again. So you can just say while true. That's it. While true, and inside this you just pass anything that's going to repeat infinite times, as many times as you want. So let's the console.log to be 2 23. So it's going to repeat for like forever, like 23, 23, 23. So let's console this thing here, because it's like it's going to lag after some time if there is a lot of outputs in the console. Now while true is something like that. Now suppose if you say while false, then what's going to happen? Let's run this. It's not going to run, because the condition is almost false. Now what if I say 2 equal to 3, strict equality? We just say false, because 2 is not equal to 3. 2 equal to true, that's true, that's why it's going to run again like infinite times. Let's console it out. Next let's console this thing here. And one more thing is there, suppose if you want to print the table of any kind of number, then you can even do it by using js. And let's say the number we want the table of 234. Then you can select for let I to be equal to 0, I smaller than number, not number, we can just say 10, because we want to print the table from the first to the 10th, right? So we don't need to give like okay, let's do that and I plus plus. Okay, we are going to print like console.log. Okay, now at this point we are going to say like number into I plus 1, means we are going to add 1, like if there is 0 it's going to give 1, and the number 234 into 1 is 234 only. 234 into 2 is like 468 only. So it's going to print the table in that way. Let's save this, so you can see like 1 235. Okay, not like this, we need to give it in brackets. Let's save this. So 234 468 702 936 1170 1404 1638 1872 2106 2340. So that's like the table of 234. Or you can even give any number. You can just give 3. 3 table is there. You give any random number, you will get the table of that number. This is one more use. Now okay, let's do one question here, that's like to find the factorial, of a number, So that's also a task that you can use, that you can do, like by using number for loop, right? So let's comment it out, and let's say like let factorial be there, like to be like equal to 1, because if we take it to be 0, we multiply it and we get 0 only. So let's take factorial to be 1. After that, we are going to say for let's say let I, and let's take the number as well. Let's take the number as well. Let's say let number to be equal to, let's take the factorial of 4. So yeah, the factorial for 24 is going to be, let's take the value of I to be 0, I smaller than, okay, let's take I smaller than 4, not 4, the number. Then I minus minus the inverse, we are going to do half inverse half, the same thing. So we are going to decrease the value, and we are going to just say like, uh not like, we are not going to decrease it, we are going to just increase it, right? We need to increase that. And let's say factorial into equal to the I. Yeah, I think the I only. So factorial into I. Let's start this loop from 1, because if it's 0, then it's going to be like factorial is going to be 0 only. So factorial multiply by the I, and at last, after that's all done, let's say console.log factorial. 6, we are getting like 6 is like factorial of 3, right? So number plus 1, 24. We are just checking, because when we are checking for number only, then when it becomes 4, then the 4 stops working and it will not multiply it by 4, right? So we need to say number plus 1 means for 5, then it will multiply by 4, and we are going to get the output, right? Let's change this number to 5, we are going to get 120. Let's save this 120. Yeah, 7 5040. Yeah, that's 5040. Let's give 10, and like 3 like what's that, like 36 lakh 28,800. Like the factorial of the number means a multiplication of all the numbers below it except 0, because if you take like factorial of 0, then if we take 0, that's going to be 1. If we take 1, that's going to be 1. So if we take 0, why it's going to be 1? Because when we are saying like let number to be equal to 1, number is 0, it's like smaller than, but it's not smaller, it's like equal to that. So we are getting the factorial 1 only, because the condition is like false. Like you are saying the number to be equal to 0, and you are saying number plus 1, right? So a number plus 1 is going to be 1, but and we are taking the I as well 1. So I is equal to 1, and the number is also 1. So 1 is equal to 1, not smaller than 1. So we are not going to add anything, and we are not going to run any kind of function inside this, right? We are going to just log out the factorial 1 only, is the initial value. So this is how we can just use for and while loops. Let's do one question that says write an alternate function for each. This is something interesting. Let's do that. Let's say at this point what we need, let's take an array, and let's take, okay, we were having with that, right? This collection. Let's remove the shuffled one. Now let's say object. We are, I just discussed this thing in one of my videos, like you can just set prototype of anything. I think in my GS basics video, in that I just discussed about that, how you can just set prototype of anything. Like you can set the prototype of number string by using the object dot set prototype. That's the thing that I discussed in that. So object dot set prototype of, and we are going to just pass the collection here. In that collection variable, we are going to pass one prototype, and we are going to say for each element. Let's take this a little bit different function. For each element to be a function, and this function, let's take the for each element is going to be a function, and that's going to have one callback here, callback, and that's it. We are going to say for let I equals 0, I smaller than the collection, like collection dot length, and collection dot length I plus plus. We are just running a very simple loop, and we are going to say like callback. We are going to call the callback, means the callback function, In that, we are going to pass two parameters. First parameter, you all know that like this index, like the index of that element, right? I think the index of that element. And if you want to get the exact element, the collection, and inside that the element. So that's it. Let's save this and let's say collection, not for each element. Let's pass this. Let's take this thing like index and e and e index, right? Let's say console.log e comma e index, right? Let's do that. So at the 0th position we are having 1, correct? First position 2, to second position 3rd, means 3, and the third position 4, and the fourth position we are having 5. That's all correct. So this is the similar alternate function for each. And yeah, that's it. So yeah, that's all for this video. Meet in the next video with some new built-in technology. Till then, see you.